Jimmy Garoppolo. All right. For me, this is really interesting. Here's why Jimmy Garoppolo is fascinating. Jimmy Garoppolo has been injury plagued since he got to San Francisco. All right. This is a guy that they can't count on to stay healthy for whatever reason. Wasn't healthy this year. Wasn't healthy in his first full season in San Francisco. Was healthy for the most part last year, but even dealt with some things last year, or 2 years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. But you just start with the injury history first. Then you get to his play, and that's been spotty at best when he's healthy. The 49ers know they can do so much better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Here's the interesting caveat. Garoppolo, if he's on the roster, counts for $27 million of cap space for the San Francisco 49ers. But if they cut him, they would free themselves of $24.2 million worth of cap space. That's right, they're only on the hook for $2.8 million if they are to part ways with Jimmy Garoppolo. Pretty safe to say that if they can land themselves a veteran quarterback this offseason, Jimmy Garoppolo is toast. He's done in San Francisco. Now, I don't know if they pulled the trigger on releasing him if they don't have someone to replace him. A wise man once told me, don't quit your job unless you already have another form of income to replace it. If you're the 49ers, unless you know of a guy that's going to be able to come in and give you quality snaps at the quarterback position to where you don't fall off a cliff, and CJ Beathard nor Funny Face is going to do that for you. So why would you even do that if you didn't have someone that you loved coming in to replace him? So that's why I think Deshaun Watson is intriguing for the 49ers, because if they can get their hands on Watson, they could care less about, draft picks. In their mind, they're thinking we're going to be good the next 5 years. So they can have our first round pick for the next 2-3 years, because that's going to be 27, 28, and hopefully one of those years it'll be 32 overall. But if they can get out of the Garoppolo deal, which they can by releasing him, and inherit the Watson contract, it's like an even trade-off. They will lessen the hit. I've already told you the numbers for Watson coming up. So the 49ers are really interesting. I think that's the team that nobody's really talking about in the NFC, to me, that is a dark horse, because they can get out of this Garoppolo deal. And I want to add this on to Garoppolo's situation. If he's released, could you not see a reunion back in New England? This is what makes the most. Somebody brought this to my attention the other day in the comment section, and I said, you know what, that makes a ton of sense. And at that time, I didn't know what I know now about Garoppolo's contract, so I didn't think he would be released. So I don't think they're going to go back and trade for Garoppolo. But remember, Belichick never wanted Garoppolo gone in the first place. That was all Robert Kraft's doing. Okay, Tom Brady didn't want him around. Kraft didn't want him because Brady didn't want him, and they forced Belichick's hand. Okay, he never wanted to move on from Garoppolo because Garoppolo was his way out of Brady's situation. That was his way to move on from Brady and not have what happened this year happen to them, where they fall off the table completely and are looked at as a joke. You could easily see a scenario where they miss out on Matthew Stafford. They look around at the rest of the landscape. The Jets are like, we're not trading you, Sam Darnold. Stop calling us. And they look at the rest of the landscape in the NFL, and they're like, nah, we're good on Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Eagles aren't going to trade us Wentz. We thought we might be able to explore that. They reneged on that. They're going to keep him in Philadelphia. I could easily see them saying, well, we don't have to give up anything for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's out there. He's available. He knows our system. Same offensive coordinator when he left is still there. And remember, Garoppolo was damn good when he was with the Patriots. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Belichick thinks he can win if he gets a quarterback that doesn't throw up all over himself. They're going to have to add some more offensive weaponry. There is no doubt about it. They don't have enough, out there. Getting Edelman back helps, but they're going to have to do a total makeover with the skill positions. And if they're healthy at running back, that would go a long way because they've got one of the most talented stables of running backs in the league. But they're going to need more receiver help. They're going to need some more help at the tight end position. They need a makeover. And they got some young guys that I think are actually talented, especially at the tight end position, that can actually help them. But receiver is a problem right now. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo back to New England, if he's released. And again, the dominoes have to be set up and then knocked down and set in motion in a way that allows them to then release him for that to happen. Meaning the 49ers would have to get their hands on a veteran quarterback. I still think Deshaun Watson is the apple of their eye. If they get him, they're going to release Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo then says, I'm going to pack my bags and go back home, which is New England. And, then things start to come together. But Garoppolo is interesting because for the 49ers, $4.2 million over the next 2 seasons is all they will be on the hook for if they cut Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason. It's too enticing to pass up, especially for a guy that hasn't done anything for you. Again, if they don't find a guy, then you much rather deal with the evil you know than the evil you don't know. They don't want to go to Nick Mullins. They don't want to go to CJ Beathard. So, you know what time it is. That's an interesting dynamic there. If the 49ers can get them a guy, Garoppolo could be on the outs, and I could see him marching right back to New England. Jared Goff, another interesting situation. All right. And let me just add this to the New England Patriots situation as well. Let me just add this last tidbit before we move on. They're not in the business anymore. They don't have Tom Brady. They're no longer in the business of giving away draft picks. They're not looking to mortgage their future to say get a Deshaun Watson. They're not looking to do that. Even they wouldn't trade him to the Patriots anyway. But just as an aside, like they're not looking to give away, first round picks. They've done that. They went down that road. That's why they're in the position they're in right now. So they made some moves. They mortgaged their future to win now, from a cap standpoint, even from a draft pick standpoint at times. They're not doing that anymore. They're looking to build this thing the right way. Belichick was crying about it last year. He's like, I'm not making any excuses. It's facts. Towards the end of Tom's run, we mortgaged the future. We made a deal with the devil so that we could try to win and hoist more Lombardis. And for the most part, we did. So we're not really upset about it, but it's costing us now. It's hurting us now. Anyway, Jared Goff. The Rams are in quite the quandary. Let's talk about, before we get to the numbers and Jared Goff's situation from a contractual standpoint, let's just talk about what this situation has evolved into and how we have gotten here. So, Jared Goff goes out, plays with a broken thumb, wins a playoff game on the road at Seattle. The big controversy there, he wasn't the starter for that game despite feeling good enough to go, and ultimately he had to play in that game. And despite not being able to start, ended up leading the Rams to a victory, right? The next week, he was the starter, but even then, Sean McVay was non-committal. After this man took you on the road and won you a game in which you didn't have any intentions of playing him, with a broken hand, the man gutted it out, won you a game, and you were still non-committal the following week, wanting to see the status of John Wolford to see if he was available. It's a slap in the face if you're Jared Goff. So essentially, you get to the offseason and all these rumors start to emerge about the unhappiness of Sean McVay with Jared Goff. And I get it. He was a turnover machine. I talked about how this Rams offense, hadn't had a clean game all season long. Every single game in the regular season, there was at least one Rams turnover, and most of them by Jared Goff. Okay, he turned it over from an interception standpoint. He fumbled the football. They had issues with ball security, and Goff was the main culprit. That said, I think Sean McVay feels like there's a limitation to the offense with Jared Goff, healthy or not healthy. So, Les Snead, the Rams GM, steps up to the mic, and he's asked about Jared Goff, and something tickled my ear. And I got this same feeling, and I'm going to tell you when I had this same feeling. But he said something that tickled my ear a bit. And he said, hey, look, man, Jared Goff's a member of this Rams football team right now, you know? And I said, my Louie T senses are tingling. So I had to go back in the old proverbial brain archives. Like, when did I hear that one before? And then it dawned on me. Just 2 years ago, I remember Cardinals GM Steve Keim, when referring to Josh Rosen on the roster, saying he's an Arizona Cardinal for now. I remember in the moment saying, that's not a very ringing endorsement of a guy that you just drafted last year. They're probably going to trade him. Right now seems like very temporary. Not something they view as a permanent thing. You don't need to tell me that he's a member of the Rams now. Like, you could just say he's a member of the Los Angeles Rams, period. You don't have to throw in that adjective at the end that changes everything. For now, or he remains a Rams player, any of that. Any way to describe his current situation. And so it got me to thinking, are they trying to get out of the Jared Goff business? I think the answer is yes. I think they are trying to get out of the Jared Goff business. Now, here's the problem. Who the hell is going to trade for that contract? Who in the hell is trading for Jared Goff? That's the problem. If they could, trust me, they would. If someone was interested, they'd trade Jared Goff in a heartbeat. The problem is, nobody wants your stuff, man. This is your merchandise, and nobody else wants it. All right? They're the team in the parking lot as you're walking back to your vehicle that rolls up on you and says, hey, man, I got these gold chains, man. And you're like, nah, I'm good, man. You sure? Yeah, I'm good. All right, man. They're that guy. They're the guy that's trying to sell you this car radio in the parking lot, or he's got these TVs for sale. And you're like, nah, I'm good, man. Thanks, but I'm going to pass. And I don't think they're going to be able to move on from Jared Goff. And here's why. Goff counts $35 million against the Rams cap this year, which is why they really would like to move him. They can't cut him, okay? So no talks of cutting Jared Goff. Here's why they can't cut him. If they tried to cut Jared Goff, the $35 million that they're on the hook for this year escalates to $65.2 million of dead cap money. In essence, Jared Goff ain't going nowhere via being released. So, not happening. That said, over the next 4 years, this is what Jared Goff's contract numbers look like. If you were to trade for him in 2021, $28 million is what you're on the hook for. In 2022, it's 26. In 2023 and 2023, it's 25.6. And in 2024, it's 26.6. Again, you're not going to make it to the end of that deal. You never, with these quarterbacks, you never make it. That last year of the deal isn't worth the paper that it's on. Okay. However, looking at that, just playing with the numbers in my head, you're roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $27 million over the next 4 years for Jared Goff. Now, again, that's not, if Jared Goff were, say, Kirk Cousins, if he were giving you that level of play, that's not a bad contract, okay? That's not a bad deal. $27 million per year for a good top half of the league NFL starting caliber quarterback is good money. That's not terrible money. That's not bad. It's not going to hurt your football team. If you're a team and you're signing a quarterback, they usually do it off of percentage of the cap. And wherever the cap is, and you're signing that quarterback, what percentage of our cap is this quarterback going to tie up? Really, with teams, they want that number to not exceed 14% of their cap. They'd really like it to be somewhere in that 13% range of their cap that they're tying up with the quarterback position. But, for the extreme cases, it may be 14, maybe even 15. But for Jared Goff, $27 million per year isn't a good deal. You're looking at him and you're saying, and look, I don't think Jared Goff is terrible, but you can do a hell of a lot better than Jared Goff. I mean, if we sat down and we made a list of the 32 starting quarterbacks in this league, is Jared Goff in the top half of the league? I don't know. That's if he's in the top half, barely. Like he's 15 or 16, right? He's not too far away though. If he's not in the top half, he's 17, 18, 19, or 20. He's no worse than 20. But you're not trying to pay the 18th or 19th best quarterback in the league $27 million per year. That's not what you're interested in doing. For that kind of money, you might as well go sign Ryan Fitzpatrick for, $13, $14 million a year and keep it pushing. Right? So I just don't see anybody traded for Jared Goff. So I think the Rams are stuck. And we're hearing that there will be an open quarterback competition next year in terms of Goff and John Wolford. That's interesting, man. Really, really interesting stuff there. But I don't see Jared Goff going anywhere because I don't think anybody wants any parts of that contract. And then lastly, Carson Wentz. He's not going anywhere, man. Again, the Eagles have done everything this offseason to ensure that he remains the starter in Philadelphia. They go out and get Nick Sirianni as their new head coach. He was the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis. Don't think for one second that he didn't consult with head coach Frank Reich in Indianapolis, because Wright was the quarterback's coach in Philadelphia when Wentz played his best football. So, of course, Sirianni's going to ask Frank Wright, what do you know about this Wentz guy? What do you think about him? How talented is this guy? How coachable is he? Is he a good kid? Is this somebody that I can hitch my wagon to? And Frank Wright doesn't cuss. He's one of those guys like Phillip Rivers that just doesn't swear. And it's so great to hear him get fired up, because you would insert curse word here, but instead he says something like, man, that was so stinking good. He'll be like, man, Carson Wentz, he can freaking throw the football. I love when guys don't cuss and how they substitute words in there, and they say it with so much emphasis, like the word stinking or frickin'. Anyway, I can tell you this. Wentz is staying put. Nick Sirianni feels good about Wentz, which is why the Eagles hired him. They go and they get Shane Steichen from the Los Angeles Chargers, who worked very closely with Justin Herbert last year as the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles. And so when you look at everything they've done this offseason, it's geared towards molding and shaping and re-energizing Carson Wentz. And I just want you guys to understand, Timothy Wells, dadgummit, I just want you guys to know Carson Wentz can play. Like, I know a lot of you are down on him right now. He would have been a very interesting commodity this offseason had he come available. I think after Matthew Stafford, and we've heard already, if you've been listening to the reports on Stafford, that the Lions have received a phone call from over half of the league regarding Matthew Stafford, okay? And I believe every bit of it. I don't think that's just the Lions trying to blow smoke. They don't have to blow smoke to move Matthew Stafford. They're going to be able to pit teams against each other. Look, I'm getting a first-round pick for them. What more can you give me? All right, their pick is at 16. You're sitting at 19. Why should I trade him to you when I can get a better deal here? You're going to have to sweeten this a little bit for me, Washington, if you want him. Come on now. Help me out here. So they've got a situation brewing there where they're going to be able to pit teams against each other. I think Wentz would have been the second most sought-after quarterback this offseason. Not, he's not better than Watson, neither is Stafford, but they're more affordable. No one really wants to part ways with 3 first-round picks. You'll do it if you have to, because Watson is such a talent, but nobody really wants to part ways with that kind of draft capital. They much rather part ways with a second or first and move on with that guy having given up a first-round pick or a second or a third. And I think you could have fetched Wentz for a third rounder. You wouldn't have even had to give up a first. He would have been someone New England and a lot of these teams out there, Chicago, a lot of these teams would have really been intrigued by Carson Wentz. And I think you would have been able to pit them against one another to the point where I think you could have gotten 2 2s, possibly even a 1 for Wentz when it was all said and done, because you're going to have so many interested teams. But that's not the case. He's not going anywhere. And he can play. I just want to reiterate this. At one point, we thought Carson Wentz was going to be one of the leaders of the new school of quarterbacks in the league. We thought he was going to be what Josh Allen is right now. We thought that was Wentz 2 years ago. That's what we thought Wentz was going to be. So don't forget that. Don't forget that Carson Wentz in 2019 with the likes of who's the receiver? God damn, I forgot the guy that used to play quarterback for Houston. That's the receiver out there in Philadelphia. Greg Ward. With Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and a bunch of other scrubs, Carson Wentz threw 33 touchdown passes against 7 interceptions in 2019 and helped the Eagles win the NFC East. Don't forget that. Don't forget that Carson Wentz just 2 seasons ago was an elite, young, up-and-coming NFL quarterback. And in 2017 was on the verge of winning league MVP before he got injured late in the season versus the Rams. Like, let's not forget that. He didn't just forget how to play football. It's a confidence thing. How many times have you heard me talk about confidence in this league? And when you can see a guy struggling with confidence, it comes, it goes. Unless you're an elite player and you've got this air about yourself that no matter what happens, I know I can play and I can get it done and I'm one of the best. Your confidence is fleeting, man. You have a couple of rough games. If you're a receiver, you got some drops. Confidence starts to wane. You see a guy internally struggling to catch the damn football. You put a punt returner back there and he drops a couple. You're telling me Jamison Crowder in Washington 3 years ago, he could catch the damn football. He could return punts. Guy was a beast at it at Duke. But he dropped a couple of them, he muffed a few, and all of a sudden he lost his confidence. It happens all the time in the league. Wentz lost his confidence last year. His coach didn't believe in him. The players around him stopped believing in him. He lost confidence in himself, and that's the worst thing. Other people can lose confidence in you. You can't lose confidence in you. He lost confidence in himself last year. And it didn't help that his head coach refused to run the football to take some of the pressure off of him. And it didn't help that the offensive line was in tatters and they had to keep subbing in guys in and out. There's going to be a bigger emphasis on running the football. They're going to stabilize the offensive line. Wentz is going to be just fine, I think, in Philadelphia, believe it or not. Believe it or not. I don't think he's not as damaged goods as many of you think. He's not as damaged as many of you think. This isn't beyond repair. You can fix Carson Wentz. We'll see if they got the right guy or not in Nick Sirianni to fix him, but he's not beyond repair. So he's not going anywhere. He'll be in Philadelphia, and he'll be your starter week 1 for the Eagles. So.
Louie.